good morning, depending on where you're watching us from. So it is 2 p.m. here in the UK, so nice early 10 a.m. over in America. I hope you're, no it's not, it's 9 a.m. sorry. Hope you're having a lovely morning, and I hope you're having a great day doing whatever you are, whether it's crafting, prepping for Christmas, or just having a lovely lazy Saturday morning. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Now this is our starter skills show, and we're going to be focusing on cardstock. So we're going to take it all back to basics. This is all an educational show. So this might be cardstock that you're looking at on our website, or it might be cardstock that you've already got and you're thinking, I never touched that, it's gathering dust, it makes an excellent doorstop, but that's not quite what I bought it for. I bought it to use, and between myself, but mostly my lovely friend Jan, who we're going to speak to in just 1 minute, are going to show you how you can use that cardstock and really get the most out of it. So, you know, they cost us a pretty penny, so let's make sure we use them. So, Jan, are you ready to talk cardstock?
I certainly am. I've chosen sort of my 6 top card that is sort of like used all the time, and you hear us talking about it when we're demoing. You may or may not have got it in your own stash, it might be one of your favourites, but we're going to go through all the different ones and their uses for the starter skills show today.
Right, well the first one we're going to start with, here we're going to look at multi-purpose cardstock. Lovely white cardstock, and our Jan's going to tell you all about it.
Right, so our multi-purpose card then, we give it that name for a reason, because it does so many different things. It comes in A4 and A3, and I'm going to use the A4 piece of it today to work with. Nice, smooth, non-coated cardstock. And again, if you have card in your stash that is called stamping card, it's exactly the same card, but we renamed it because it does so many different things. So for example, at 300 GSM, it is more than weighty enough to actually make your card blanks from it. Okay. It also die cuts beautifully. So again, you can see there against my top there, that lovely intricate die cut, so it will go through all your machines and die cuts beautifully. It also embosses beautifully, so I've actually just run that one through one of our 3D embossing folders. You can then add things to it, absolutely beautiful. And because it's a smooth surface, you can use it with some of your colouring mediums as well. We'll talk about that a little later. But what I'm actually going to do to it this morning is one of my favourite things to do, and that's actually bring in some of our inks. And ink blending on here, because you have such a smooth surface, is a really nice thing to do. So I've just brought some of our water reactive ink today. I'm going to take a piece of scrap card. I'm going to load up my applicator with that lovely water reactive ink, and this one is crushed velvet. And then I'm just going to use the piece of scrap card as a sort of a stopper and add, you can see how beautifully that sort of goes onto the card. And then I'm literally just going to move the cardstock scrap around, bring it round here to create like a, almost like a sunbeam effect, but just by bringing that ink into each one, you're going to get a slightly heavier bit towards the bottom, and it's going to create that lovely sort of way of whoops, just holding it tight in there. So again, taking this all the way down your card. All right, I'm just going to move it one more time. You get the idea of what I'm doing there. Okay. So you can see how that's coming on there. We've got that into that line. And then literally, just tidy that up a little bit there. And you'd carry this on all the way round, just moving your piece of card all the way round. And then if I just move that to one side there, pop those away, and just bring in that finished example of what you can actually do with these, you can see there how we've created, I've actually gone the other way with that one, it's this way, and just created that kind of sunburst effect. But because you've got that lovely smooth surface of that white multi-purpose card, it really does give a fantastic effect there. So that one's white multi-purpose card, available in A4 and A3 sizes.
Really, really useful. I love that technique. But a multi-purpose card. It can be used for our card bases, as you can see here. So we've got construction. I've got my easel card here, so I'm using it on there. I've got it here for my scrapbook pages. As we said, it embosses and it can make boxes. And oops, that's your multi-purpose card. Really, really useful. So there we go. That was a really quick overview, but I think you can see it's definitely going to be one of your staples that you can use. I mean, absolutely brilliant way, as you're showing, you know, Jan showed us one colour, but you can apply multiple colours of your inks on there. You know, and the fact that your boxes are going to be so robust, I just love it. It's just one of those that you're going to use all the time. And I think what Jan said is absolutely key. That's why we've renamed it from stamping card to multi-purpose, because people are like, well, it's a stamping card, why am I using it to emboss or, you know, ink? So it's brilliant. Now, we have so many of you with us. So it's our lovely Chloe on socials today. But watching us, we've got Lisa from Minnesota. We have got Alison from Brooklyn. Fazia says, so looking forward to seeing Jan and Corrine. We're glad to have you with us. Thea says, hoi hoi, everyone just finished a baby card. Bet you used your multi-purpose card on that. Zoe Carver says, good afternoon, everyone from West Sussex. Melanie D says, hello again, all. Thank you for joining us for the second show. We've got Lynn, who is also known as Go Live Granny. I love that. From Isle of Wight. Rachel, good afternoon, crafty peeps. Samantha, good morning, everyone. She must be in America. Happy Saturday. Oh, Melanie loves this technique. Jan. So we had Kirsty D on early. Remember, she said she was making soap.
Oh, yes.
She said her house is smelling like a fruit salad. She's
bet
done
it's
lemon,
lovely.
orange, strawberry and cherry soaps.
Wow.
She's got Christmas ones to do next. Christmas spice, Christmas pudding and Christmas tree.
Oh, can you... do you know, I'm just imagining the smell now.
I bet it smells amazing.
Delicious, I bet, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Oh, can you imagine going in a shower with a Christmas spice soap and the whole room, the steam? Yeah, how beautiful is that? Patch says, I love that technique, Jan, but the multi-purpose card is out of stock. Could I use Neenah card to try this? Now, we are going to get the stock in. What we're trying to do is show you tips and techniques for all of the products. I know some of you will already have your multi-purpose. The multi-purpose will be back in stock. But there's a difference, isn't there? The construction of the card. The fibres in your multi-purpose are quite short. And so when you put your ink on, it doesn't travel. It stays where you put it, which we're going to look at the Neenah, and the construction of a Neenah card is very different, isn't it?
I think just the weights as well, Corrine. So I always choose the multi-purpose because of its weight at 300 GSM. The Neenah cardstock is only 216 GSM. So there's more chance of, when you're using your applicator, actually buckling the card. And like Corrine says, it does sit differently. It's not impossible. You can do it, but for the optimum sort of effect, I would be working with that cardstock. And like Corrine's just said, you know, the stock is constantly being replenished. It just depends when it arrives in the warehouse. So so don't worry. If for anything, if a product is ever out of stock, there's a little box that you can click on our website that says that it will email you when it's back in stock. So if you have an email account and you use email, tick the little box, and then once it comes back in stock, we will automatically send you an email to say it's arrived in the warehouse and it's back in stock.
But it would have been such a shame not to have included multi-purpose in this show when we're talking about all of the different cardstock. So I know it's out of stock, I know that can be frustrating, but this is sort of your... This is
the top of my list.
This is all about your different cardstocks. So that'll teach me, won't it?
I did this one first because it's the one I use most.
Yeah.
You know, it's called multi-purpose for a reason. You can see all the different things that you could do with it, and that's why I actually came to that one first, because it's the one I reach for the most when I'm crafting, definitely without a doubt.
Right.
Are you all right over there,
I think I've nearly got it back together. I've nearly got it back together. Let me just put this on. I'm just going to put my watercolour card. I saw our Charlotte making this so pretty, and I've just messed it all up completely. Hopefully, that's nearly. If anybody's looking, it looks nearly right. There we go. I didn't knock my cup of tea over. That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Oh, Apparently, I can make that a bit straighter. I can make that a bit straighter.
That's it.
There you go. Right, there we go. Oh dear, there's some picky people about. Right, now, I think that leads me perfectly into the next cardstock, that last question, because we're going to look at our Neenah cardstock next. So this is our Neenah cardstock, and Jan is going to show you how to use it.
So again, this time we're going to go to my second pick, which is the Neenah Classic Crest card. So another smooth surface cardstock, but the way that this differs to our first choice of the multi-purpose is that it's a lot thinner. So at 216 GSM, it's much thinner than the first one was at 300. So not as suitable for making things like card blanks. It will die cut. If I'm using this, I often die cut it twice and stick them together to give it a bit more stability. But the one that this is perfect for, and what I'm going to demo for you today, is actually for using your alcohol markers. It's sort of premium cardstock for doing the alcohol colouring with. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of the Neenah card and I've actually stamped out anything, doesn't matter what it is, I've just picked a floral one for this purpose. And as always with alcohol markers, I'm just going to pop a piece underneath and then just take whatever colours you fancy and add your colour to the actual cardstock. So bearing in mind that I've stamped with an alcohol proof ink on the line art to make sure that that doesn't bleed, we can now add that colour into our design, and you'll find that it just glides over the top. Because you want to blend your alcohol markers, you want a cardstock that it's not going to seep into the card itself. So just by having a nice smooth surface like this, it makes it the perfect cardstock for you to actually start popping your alcohol colouring. So if you like the alcohol markers, this one's a staple, an absolute staple to have in. And again, I've picked cardstock that I use on a regular basis. You'll see when we're demoing that, you know, we're talking about all the different types of card, but you can see how well that ink sort of sits on there. And if you've reached the saturation point of the card, you should always be able to see this is normal on the back. It should not seep all the way through, but you will see it actually starting to dry into the cardstock there. So again, add the colours that you choose that you think will actually do the job, and when you've finished, you can just see how well those colours blend onto that nice smooth surface. And of course, that is on your Neenah Classic Crest cardstock.
An absolute staple there, I think, is your Neenah. Now, as Jan says, if you are using it as a base here, what we've done here is we've stamped onto it and then coloured with our pens. We've used it as a matte layer rather than the actual card itself, and then you get the right sort of weight. Different ways to colour, and then you're perfectly using your Neenah cardstock. There we go. Aren't those absolutely gorgeous? Lots of lovely different ways. I was going to show you one as well. Don't they take your inks beautifully? And that's because, as we were saying, it's a different construction. You've got the longer fibres, so that ink can travel down those fibres and then it will blend. If you've got a short fibred cardstock, the ink stops where you put it. With this, it travels and it leaves you to, allows you rather, to do the blending. So who else has joined us? Let's have a look. Where did I get up to? There we go. Kathy Meyer says hello from Missouri. Evelyn says good morning from a beautiful Colorado. Wow. Cynthia is in a rainy Texas. Really enjoying these starter shows. Hopefully, Cynthia, you know, you're going to pick up hints and tips and techniques all the way through with these. Joanne says, I just love these shows. I've done so much shopping the last day, such wonderful deals. Pat says, thank you, Corrine and Jan, for your helpful explanation about the cardstock. Well, we haven't finished yet, Patch. We've got 4 more to do, I think. We have. Barbara says, hello, everyone. I love this session, learning so much, and I've been creating cards for a while. We all do. I love doing the shows with Jan, just because I pick up tips and techniques, but don't tell her that. And then Rhonda says, good morning to everyone, all my wonderful crafty friends out there crafting and chatting today. That's what I love. The fact that we only get fed a few of the comments, but there are even more comments coming through socials that we don't get to see. You just chat amongst yourself, which is brilliant. And Joanne says, I learned so much from these shows. So absolutely fantastic. And I'm really, really glad to have everybody on board. Are you ready to show us the next one, Jan? Are you ready?
Am.
Okay,
Yep.
so, not that one. Not that one. We're going to... So you see it all wobble? I had my ear. They went, oh. They were waiting for it to fall over. It's like when you used to build those...
Do you used to build those towers with the playing cards?
Playing cards, yeah.
Yeah, you always got to the last one and the whole thing crumbled.
Yeah, that's often how I feel. Cardstock. There we go. We're going to look at watercolour cardstock. And Jan is going to show you some wonderful techniques using this.
Okay, so we've got watercolour card this time, and this differs quite a lot from the two that I've shown you previously. So watercolour card is made specifically for watercolour mediums. So things like inks, things like your aqua markers or pencils, anything that you're going to apply water to. So again, I'm just going to take a piece of that cardstock. I've actually got just a piece cut ready, and I've actually got my tricolour aquas here, which are a water-based colouring pen. All right, and I'm just going to do a little technique for you, and then I've got a couple of examples of other things that you can do with it as well. So all I'm going to do is take, and this is just a piece of plastic from, I call them Polly Pockets, the little pocket that you put your documents inside. I've just cut it open, and I've actually got a piece that will work with my card. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take 3 colours at random and scribble them onto my piece of plastic. So we'll have a bit of green, and we'll have a little bit of that lovely amber orange colour. So just where you want them on your card. And then I've got some water in a cup with my little pipette, and I'm literally going to drop it just into 1 or 2 places on the card there where I want that design to go, and then turn this over and place it onto that card. Now, because we've got watercolour card here, it's made to play with all these watercolour products. So you can spread this out and create your own backgrounds. And then when we remove that, you can see how it's laid that colour down. So again, you can move it about. I would bring my heat tool out at this point and actually dry this. And then you've got that as a background to do things over. So this one's actually a little bit more vivid. I use different colours here, but you can see how I've incorporated that as a background and then just stamped over the top of it. So again, just giving you an idea of what to do. But also don't forget, it might be to do your washed backgrounds there. It could be, you can actually stamp with the watercolour onto the watercolour card, and you can actually, you've seen me do the technique with the glycerin with the pens to actually make it into like an ink. So just a few examples of how to use that beautiful watercolour card.
Wow, that is amazing. Completely different techniques we've got here. We've got some sort of faux stamping with this one here. So you've got your no line stamping. We have used our watercolour cardstock so that you can colour with it. We have stamped on there, and then we've made a background on our watercolour cardstock, and all the different ways you can be using your cardstock, what you've got at home. Absolutely fantastic. I just love that. That blew my mind, seeing you do that. I have never seen that. And I love that how you've made the background, but then you can stamp on top of it. It's almost like the start, isn't it?
You could stamp on it, you could put it through an embossing folder, you could die cut your flowers out of it. Just because it's watercolour card doesn't mean it doesn't die cut.
Yeah.
So again, it will go through all your machines. It's the same weight as the multi-purpose card. It's just that for things like alcohol markers, definitely a no-no. It's far too absorbent. It would suck up the ink. You wouldn't be able to blend it. Yeah. Same as blending like I did on the first demo with your inks. The cardstock's very absorbent on a watercolour card, so it would just soak it. I'm not saying you can't do it. It would use so much of your product that you'd be constantly renewing things. So yeah, has a purpose in that army of what I call core cardstocks.
Yes, absolutely. That background that you made would look lovely if you'd cut out what I'd call a skeletal die cut, you know, like a flower where
Yes.
you've just got the outlines, or a butterfly, and
Yeah.
then you put that behind it, so you just see all those colours popping through.
Absolutely,
Would
yeah.
look brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a question for you. This is from Lisa. She says, what's the best cardstock to use for the puzzle die? I know what I would say, but...
Because I think most of the puzzle dies are multimedia dies, if I
Yes.
remember rightly. So therefore, you want something that's quite substantial. Now, we actually launched a pack of mount board when we launched the jigsaw, the puzzle dies. So if you have a look on the website, I haven't brought the mount board with me today because it is more of a multimedia sort of product rather than the cardstock. But yeah, those dies, because they're multimedia, if they're brown in colour as opposed to the usual silver that you see in our die range, then they are multimedia, which means they will cut through thicker components. So the mount board is beautiful, and from the point of view of using it as a jigsaw, it works great. Now, if you don't have access to that, you could actually be looking at, if it's the multimedia die and it's a brown coloured metal, you could actually be sticking a couple of sheets of the multi-purpose card together, or maybe even 3 of them, and those dies would still cut through. The idea being that as a jigsaw puzzle, if you're going to use it as a puzzle, it needs to be robust enough to be taken apart and put back together and taken apart again. So yeah, the actual thicker materials work better, and you can work on the mount board, you can do whatever you want on top of it, just like you can the cardstocks, yeah.
Thank you. That's really, really useful. Lots more comments coming through, and we can have a look at those in a few minutes. While we're whizzing through that, that's 3 of our cardstocks we've got through, I think it is, and we've got 3 more to go. So we can have a look at, we'll have time to hopefully to have a look at some more samples as well. But we're going to now look at something that we gave you a little bit of a sneak peek earlier. So this is the matte black cardstock, and again, Jan's going to show you some brilliant techniques using this.
Right, so this time we've got that gorgeous matte black. So this was number 4 on my list. So again, a nice weight, 300 GSM. So it is perfect for making things like your card blanks. So if you want to make a card blank with it, it will stand alone. It's perfect again for doing that die cutting. I've used the same die all the way through. And it's perfect for doing the embossing. It's also great for construction as well, so box making, frames, things like that. But just as a quick demo today, and this is a favourite with the black cardstock, we're going to pop a pre-cut piece, and I've just cut this from a piece of A4, pop it into my embossing folder, and this can be any embossing folder. This just happens to be a 3D lacy one. I'm going to bring in my MIDI because they go straight through the MIDI with no extra shims, and then we're going to bring out the old gilding wax. So absolutely transforms that black card. Now I'm just going to grab one of my gilding waxes from down here, take this out, and whereas you can't see much of the design while it's black, let's bring out that silver gilding wax and just highlight some of that design for you. So the minute that you start to put the gilding wax on here, this card just sort of comes to life. It's the perfect carrier for the gilding wax. You can blend your waxes as well, so it might just not want to be one colour. I've just got the silver one out here, but you could start and blend the gold into it. But you can just see how that beautiful lace design from the embossing folder there has come to life. And then you can use these as backgrounds for your cards and then work on top of them with the design. So you could add, you know, your floral aspects, you could add your sentiments to it. And the beauty of the embossing fold, of the gilding wax there, is how well it highlights that that effect. So you can just see there where we've got that design. And if I hold you that up now so that you can see a little bit better, absolutely beautiful. And then I'm just going to give it a buff as well, because the gilding wax actually works well just with a soft cloth. If you just buff it, it just brings up that sort of shimmery nature of the actual gilding polish there, the wax. So again, just to have a look at how well that's changed a matte card to something really nice and shimmery. And then again, if I just grab the one from earlier, just to show you, this was done with the bronzy colour. This is the kind of thing that you can achieve as your card. So that's our matte black cardstock.
And as Jan said, she alluded to the fact that it's perfect for construction. Look at this, we've got little drawers, we've got little booklets, we've even made frames on here. Now this is before we started adding any of our mediums to it. It's a perfect card for that. Now I just wanted to show you, it isn't about using one card in isolation. I was passed this sample. So you look at this and you think, oh, this is a box. So we've used our matte black card for the top and the bottom, perfect box making. But look at this. This is then the multi-purpose cardstock to make this quadruple frame in there. So just remember your cardstocks and mix and match your cardstocks around to make the bit that works for you. You know, and then, you know, you can be bringing in your metallic pens. You could be bringing in your Midas inks with that black cardstock. They would all look brilliant. And then if we look at, I want to show you this, how robust this is for construction. See if I can get it the right way round. Look at this, we've centered this little book with the black card, and this is really, really strong. A couple of layers of the card and then just use the right adhesive. I'd be using my solvent-based glue, our all-purpose glue, and I think that would be brilliant for that, and that would just make a lovely little gift. So I think we've got some more comments. Stephanie says, Corrine, I think Jan could hear you when you said don't tell it. Yeah, I knew she could. I knew she could, yeah. Mary Beth says, great to see Jan again. I love watching her demos. I learn so much. Everybody does. We've got Cheryl Smith saying, hello ladies, enjoying the show. Don't think I've ever watched Jan without learning some kind of little trick. Great job, both of you. Oh, so Lisa's come back, said thank you, but will mount board go through a printer? But you don't need it to, do you?
No. Under normal you mean to actually get your photo on there, don't you? Yeah, normally what we would suggest is that you actually put your photo onto either a suitable paper or you can print onto things like tissue and things like that and then adhere it to the mount board before you use your dye. Let it dry. That's really important, to let whatever you've stuck it on with dry and then use your dye. Otherwise, it's sort of, if the fibres are still damp in your photo that you've stuck on, it doesn't die cut properly. You'll end up with a bit of a jumbled mess in there. So yeah, make sure it's nice and dry, and then you can run both of those pieces through your machine with the dye and get your jigsaw pieces. Yeah,
I do that. If I'm coming here to demo, I will show sticking the picture on the mount board, but I'll actually have one that I stuck on at least yesterday. Yeah. Because obviously, if the glue's wet, the pressure of your die cutting machine, the top layer could just effectively slide straight off, couldn't it? So it's the same with anything. There's lots of times we stick things together and then die cut them. I would always say give them a good few hours, whether it's your mount board or whether Jan was saying, you know, using a couple of layers of your multi-purpose cardstock to use for your jigsaw dies. Always give them plenty of time to dry to make sure that they don't just slide one off the other when you come to die cut them. Kathy Meyer says, is Jan showing black cardstock? Yes, that was our matte black cardstock. I think I'm not sure why she asked that question, because I'm not sure whether it was being funny or
that's the one we've just done.
That's the one we've just done.
With the gilding wax,
wasn't quite sure that one. So yeah, lots more people joining these. Christine says hi there, everyone. Happy to see Jan again, says Ruth. Absolutely brilliant to have you on. Please keep bringing your comments through. And it would be lovely to have your questions as well, because this is what these are all about, these creative cravings. I mean, if we can answer any questions that you might have, for this one particularly, which cardstock to use, or even which cardstock not to use. So like Jan was saying, don't try and use your inks on your watercolour cardstock, because if you've got multi-purpose or you've got your Neenah, they are going to be so much better. I've used a dauber on watercolour cardstock, and you feel like you're dragging it, don't you?
It just drinks up any moisture because that's what it's made to do. So it's hard work. What you want to do if you're ink blending or if you're using alcohol markers is you want the ink to stay on top of the card so that it can move about and blend. Anything that's going to suck up that moisture, you're just fighting a losing battle. And the majority of time when I was teaching, when I worked at the store, as a lot of you know, and I was teaching, people would sort of suggest that they were no good at doing something. I can't ink blend, or I can't do this, I can't do that. 99% of the time it's because the product wasn't right. You've often heard me talk about being fit for purpose. It's about getting the cardstock, the ink, whatever it is you're using, they want to play nicely together. For example, I wouldn't stamp in an alcohol-based ink to then colour it in with alcohol markers, because it's going to start to move the line art. They need to be opposites, so you want a waterproof ink to go with your alcohol markers. So it's about having the right equipment and the right product, then you get the easy bit. It makes you look really good.
And on that, if you are at all unsure about your ink pads, 17th of December, it's a Saturday, I'm going to do a 101 all about ink pads.
Fabulous.
We're going to be looking at waterproof, water reactive, alcohol proof, opaques, Midas.
Metallics, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing
Have you got the new ones as well?
Oh, of course I've got the new
Pearl ones.
I'm actually not doing those on there because the next day, no, at the end of that week, I'm doing craft along with the shimmer ink pads.
Oh, I've not managed to get my hands on them yet. I'm itching. My fingers are itching to get hold of them. There's a pile of them sat here actually right at the side of me. So if you can't find them later, it wasn't me.
It wasn't you, it wasn't you.
It wasn't me.
If your bag happens to be on the floor and they fall off, just like I knocked all the cardstock off, yeah, we wouldn't say. Absolutely. Oh, brilliant. So yeah, so absolutely fantastic. And I think Jan's saying that fit for purpose, they play nicely together, is absolutely key, because that's what you want. You want, you know, it's often, we always say it's user error, but we have so much cardstock. And I think some people worry about not knowing what it is. But once you've had the multi-purpose, the Neenah and the waterproof, and you've had them in, you can actually, once you've learned them, as soon as you pick them up, you can tell which they are. Neenah is so smooth that you will know straight away if you've got Neenah in your hand. It feels, I always refer, it's almost like baby powder, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got that feel. Obviously, your watercolour cardstock is slightly pitted to take the water. And I mean, if you tried to add water to your multi-purpose and then did something over the top, all you're going to do is you're going to buff off layers of the cardstock. It's going to shred. That's not going to happen with your watercolour cardstock. You will soon learn them, as soon as you touch them, which ones are which. I've got all of mine laid up together on the shelf, but I know as soon as I pick them up that I've picked up the right one. And it's trial and error. It's just learning the products, isn't it, Jan?
It's like anything else. You know, if you were learning another trade, you'd make sure you knew the basics before you went on to do anything with it. So this is just the same about learning, and this is why we've brought these course shows in for you, just for anybody. Lots of people just starting out on their crafting journeys. You know, you think it's a bit of cardstock, Jan, come on. But they do all have different purposes, you know, and if you've got that purpose right, then you can get on and enjoy the crafting instead of having results that you're not happy with and then end up going in the bin because it doesn't look right. It takes all that stress out of it, and that's why we've brought you this show today, to just go through the best uses for each of those different types of card.
Yep. Myra says, good afternoon, everyone. Listening rather than watching, trying to tidy stock up. Apologies if I missed any messages. Well, you're going to miss seeing all the wonderful images if you're not watching, but I'm glad you're listening because you can still pick up lots of things. I actually have films on in the background when I'm crafting, and then I suddenly realise that I don't know what any of the characters look like because I've not looked at them. Oh, Tess says she's looking forward to that session. Might be the ink pads or it might be the shimmer ink pads, I'm not sure. And Stephanie, very nice message, thank you Stephanie, says, I'm enjoying Jan and Corrine together today. So much knowledge being passed between the two. Love their tops, looking fabulous. Well, it's Christmas, isn't it? Look, it's Christmas
there,
kisses.
isn't it? Yeah.
You've got to get there ready for Christmas, and Jan's got her sparkly snowflake. So, yeah, there we go. Oh, Anne, I haven't read this yet. Oh no, this one's a hard one. Anne says, I have an idea for Play Your Crafts Right game. How about identify the presenter by their hands? Oh, come on, give me a chance, Anne. It's a good one, but my nails, I have the same pattern on my nails all the time. But like our Debbie Robinson, she changes her nail design.
I suppose that depends on how much attention you pay to jewellery and things, doesn't it? Yeah, I'd be able to spot Debbie's hands even without her nails.
Is it the jewellery?
I know what she wears, yeah.
I do that. Sometimes I've watched things back with hands and I've got, oh yes, that's me because that's my watch or that's my bracelet or my wedding ring or something like that,
If I get any further than my hands, mine's a dead giveaway when the ink appears. They know it's me there, don't you?
It depends how much of the hands they can show.
Yeah, just have to put my fingertips in shot like that.
But there we go. We need those ideas. Please keep them coming in. Oh, Joanne says all of my orders are starting to come. It's so exciting. It's like Christmas
Oh, it is,
every
isn't it,
day.
when that box arrives?
My husband says to me, he says, your job is like having Christmas every day of the week, isn't it?
Have you found yourself having to explain to the DPD man yet, Corrine, that you actually work for the company?
Oh, I
did, because they were coming so regularly. He must have thought, my gosh, this woman's got a problem. So I actually had to explain for him that I do work for the company and the products are coming for my work. He's like, yeah. I don't know whether he believed me or not.
Yes. Before I started here, all the products that for the last company came by Royal Mail.
Yeah.
And I was on such good terms with the postman. And he used to know which envelope to go, because it was like, please don't take it back to the sorting office if I'm not in, because I really, really need it. And I used to know, to the point where the postman used to come and he used to knock on the door. And he'd give me a parcel, he went, but can I use your toilet?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, there we go, there we are. Right, okay. Now, we're going to look at craft cardstock next. This is really exciting. So, Jan, craft cardstock, please.
Right, so next one on the list then is the craft cardstock. And as anybody that knows me knows that this is one of my favourites. I use this a lot. Now, it's actually quite different to some of the other cardstocks in the nature that it's quite fibrous. So it's got a different sort of makeup than some of the smoother cardstocks. Reasonably smooth surface, but not as smooth as such as your multi-purpose. But again, 300 GSM, just under 300 GSM makes it ideal for making your card blanks. So again, I'm going to go through those uses for it. I've just put a lighter piece to show you the actual die cut there again. So it's the same die cut all the way through. All those cardstocks will do that die cutting and embossing beautifully. And then I'm actually going to pop a piece of that through the embossing folder again, but this time I'm going to do that letterpress technique. So I've brought in some ink again, water reactive ink, and you're actually looking for the side of the embossing folder that's recessed. And then I like to use my brayer to actually apply the ink, but you can go direct to the ink pad, for the ink pad to your folder, but I'm literally just going to spread some of the ink out inside the folder, and this is the side that's got those recessed elements to it. If you put it on the other side, when we put in our piece of cardstock, it's going to appear on the back. If you put it on this side, it's going to appear underneath. So again, I'm going to pop it through here. I'm going to fold it together. Try not to move it, Jan, when you pop it in there. I'm going to bring in that MIDI again because it's so simple with the embossing folder. Pop it through there. And again, what it does is, as well as emboss, it's taking that ink. I'm just going to grab that little bit there. And again, it transfers the ink into the cardstock. So you can just see into the background there where we've got the ink, but you've got this beautiful sculpting that pushes through, very similar to the one that I did at home. Okay, and then obviously this, because the inks are water-based, it will all just clean straight off your folder and not actually be a problem. But that was actually the technique that I wanted to show you on that beautiful craft cardstock.
But it can be used for so much more. And I went searching for these. I wanted to show you, look at this. We've used our craft cardstock here to make these gorgeous little gift boxes here. Doesn't it take the ink beautifully? We've used it here for a box, and I know that's a blog post. We have die cut it. It die cuts beautifully and then takes our gilding waxes on here. We've used it for mats and layers and also for construction. So what a useful card. I think it's probably one of the most underrated in our craft stash is our craft card. But look at this. Look at that, just a little bit of colour. And then the gold matte layer as a drop shadow looks beautiful. And again, look at this, construction weight here. Now, the one thing that I think, Jan, people need to know with craft card is adhesive. You need a good adhesive with craft card, don't you? Because it's fibrous.
Well, I would go down the same route, to be honest. If I'm working with wet glue, cardstock to cardstock is always the all-purpose glue. Yeah. Always. If I was sticking it to something like glitter card, I would probably go with the PVA, the tacky glue, because you need it to soak into that glitter card. If all else fails and you're not sure, the good old red line tape works a treat on it as well.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're not into wet glues, both the tape runner and the red line tape would work equally well with it, yeah.
Yeah,
but you're right, those fibres do soak it up a bit more than the smooth surface cards, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, you can sometimes just need a little bit more glue than you might otherwise need, just because, like I say, it's got so much more, bit more fibrous. Now, I was busting with this comment came through, and I couldn't, you were showing us the technique, and I couldn't say anymore. June Woodhouse, she's put a comment on, and she said, "Oh dear, I came home with a puppy today." June, don't leave it there. What have you got? What have you called it? And where's the pictures? What have you got? That's the breed, yeah. That's what I meant by what have you got? It's a dog, yeah. What have you got? A breed, sorry. I want to know more. I need a picture. So please, and then our Chloe will send it through. But please let us see. You lucky, lucky thing. I like this, brilliant. Now, Kendall says, what size are each of the cardstocks? Now, in the UK, I'm not sure where Kendall is, whether you're UK, US or somewhere else. All of the cardstocks that we've shown you so far today have all been A4. Now, A4 is slightly different to the US letter size, so I'm not sure where you are, but comparable, it's US letter size, more or less. We have looked at some A3, but not just this show. We looked at some A3 in the last show. So what we've looked at so far has all been A4, which is 8 1/4 inches by 11 3/4, Jan?
Just about, yeah.
Just about.
So 8 1/4 width by 11. I always say 11 3/4, and that's eyelash, because it's just that silly little bit over 11 3/4. Whoever designed it, I don't know. I believe in the US it's 8 1/2 inches by 11. Yeah. I may be wrong there, but I think it's slightly shorter, but just a little bit wider.
Yeah.
So you can do very similar things with it. And then, of course, your A3 is the equivalent of 2 pieces of A4 together. So you've got two, if you cut it in half, you'd get 2 lots of A4. Yeah.
But if you're buying anything from our website today, unless it says otherwise, it's A4, which is 8 1/4 by 11 3/4 inches. So there we go. Okay, so Joanne says, that is so funny. Our postman comes here so often, he knows if he sees my husband's truck to deliver it to my neighbour's house. I got to get in so much trouble because I have too many packages coming. I mean, what's the definition of too many packages? It could be for Christmas. You might have won a prize. How's your husband to know? There we go. Anne says, which side of craft card is the right side? Is it just personal preference? Why is it like that? Let me just grab a piece. But yes, you're absolutely right. I need 2 pieces to show this. And I'm going to get our Jan to... I'm going to get our Jan to tell us if she's got any choice. But can you see that? That's the 2 different sides to our craft card. This one is a lot warmer, and this one is a lot more rustic. Yeah. Well, I tidy up, Jan, would you like to explain?
Absolutely no right or wrong whatsoever. It is, you're right, quite right, it is pure preference. I think it's something to do with what they make the card from. So the actual pulp that they make it from, it obviously dries differently on the different sides. I personally prefer the slightly warmer side or the darker side, but it depends what you're doing with it. It depends what your end product wants to be. For doing the technique that I just did, I use that warmer side. I tend to think of the paler side as the reverse, but like I said, there's no right or wrong with it. It works equally as well if you were doing it die cutting or inking, etc. if you flip it over and you prefer that slightly paler side. So that's probably the beauty of that one, because some cardstocks, it looks different on the back. So yeah, absolutely, whichever way you prefer.
Right, okay. I'm nearly sorted. There we go.
She's rebuilt her house of cards again.
Oh, dear me. I'm going to knock it over again.
They should have had them all flat on the desk for you, shouldn't they, Corrine?
The stresses they put, introduce it, read the iPad and don't knock over the cardstock. You know, they didn't put that bit in. You know, when I've got
because we're so expressive, isn't it? And it's we talk with our hands and whack off it goes.
That's what it's been every time. It's because I've been talking with my hands.
You're in good company because Ben always knocks it over as well.
Oh dear. Okay, let's go quickly with the last ones of these comments. So we've got Joanne says, wow, that's a great technique with the embossing and ink. I'm going to have to try this, and this is why I love watching this show. Thank you, Joanne. Different Joanne, Olivienza says, hi everyone, love learning new techniques. Thank you, ladies. Stephanie says, wonderful samples. And Pamela says, well, thanks, Jan and Corrine. This has been a good learning session. Never knew about craft cardstock. Thank you so much. Well, that's what we're hoping to do. I know for some people it feels like we're going a little bit back to basics, but there's always something new to learn. And like I say, I love doing shows with Jan because I'm always learning stuff. I'm always watching and seeing how she does. Even if it's just things like inking around the edges of cut cardstock. I do it a lot more since watching some of her demos, because you do get that lovely, cleaner look. So our final cardstock is our Centura Pearl Snow White. This time we're looking at our hint of silver. So Jan, hint of silver.
So this is our Centura Pearl then, okay, so we're working with that A4 size again, and we're going to concentrate, like Corrine said, on the hint of silver, but I've just brought both of the colours, again, just to give you, there is a slight difference in the hint of silver and the hint of gold. Now, we had a look at this earlier, but I'm going to have a look at the silver one for now. So, beautiful pearlized finish on this, coated card, so you can just see that shimmer under the studio lights here. And what I'm going to do, again, I've got that die cut just to show you, you know, Centura Pearl cuts like butter through the die cutting machines. Regardless of whether it's a Gemini or any other machine, it is beautiful to die cut with. We'll make your card blanks again. I'm actually going to come back. I know I've concentrated a lot on the embossing folders this morning, but they are some good techniques. So again, I'm bringing that embossing folder back that we've just had the blue ink in, believe it or not. And I'm going to pop a piece of that cut Centura Pearl with the nice pearlescent side facing up. And again, I'm going to pass it through the machine. Now, I'm going to add ink to this again, but I'm going to do it in a slightly different way. So we're actually going to use a stencil brush this time, and it's a much more sort of gentle finish. So again, pop that out of the way, bring that out, and again, just show you that gorgeous, just look at that detail on there. You can see all that beautiful sculpting. You know, that might be it. That might be the background to your card. If you're making a nice sort of maybe a wedding card or an engagement, might just be like that. But what I'm actually going to do is bring that ink back in that I've just been using, and I'm going to bring one of my stencil brushes in and literally load up the stencil brush. And this time I'm just going to brush it gently. And a lot of people are not aware, or may not be aware, that your Centura Pearl, even though it's a coated cardstock, will take the ink, and it dries pretty much straight away. It's not particularly stays wet for very long, and this is actually our water reactive ink. And again, just by brushing it over in all different directions, you've got a slightly different look to what we did previously with the Centura Pearl. So if I just move that to one side now and just have a look, you can just see how it's taken on that hue of the ink there. The one that I did earlier is pretty much the same, a little bit paler on the one. That one still looks quite pale blue, but that one's taken that ink beautifully. And then again, you've got your backgrounds with that Centura Pearl. This is the one that we did earlier where we applied the ink with a sponge applicator and then just chopped it up to make our background. But again, you know, when you've got something as pretty as that, add a sentiment, maybe a little bow or something, you've got your card blank. So that's our Centura Pearl with a hint of silver.
Absolutely fantastic. But as well as embossing, Centura Pearl, being so strong, being the 310 GSM, works brilliantly for your construction, whether it's your boxes, whether your frames, whether it's your other frames, or whether it's your mats and layers like that. So absolutely perfect. Now, we've only touched on Centura Pearl today in the Snow White, the hint of silver and the hint of gold. Centura Pearl will come in lots of different colours. Oh, that was a good timing. I can see Jan's got hers. Now, this one has been used as a card base here. So this is Centura Pearl. This is the ivory. So you can see it looks brilliantly. So Centura Pearl comes in so many colours. And I think Jan's got just an example of a fraction of the colours.
Just a handful. I had a look at what I'd got on my shelf and just pulled out some of the colours, but it comes in pretty much every colour in the colour spectrum, including, you've heard me talk about my sexy black one before. Just look at this. This only comes out on special occasions. that gorgeous black Centura, and also in metallic colours as well. So you can get the metallic coppers and golds and silvers and things like that. So there's a whole range of Centura Pearl. The white ones being sort of the core product, but you know, you can get purple, you can get dark chocolate, you can get the royal blues, all sorts of, as I say, pretty much any colour you can think of, we make that Centura Pearl in, and it behaves exactly the same as the white. It will take the ink, the same as what I've just done on the white. So versatile, really is.
Absolutely. I think my favourite combinations at the moment are chocolate and mink.
Chocolate
together.
and
Chocolate and mink
nice.
look lovely. But I love the one we call pumpkin. It's a really nice orange. It's not too orange, and it goes with so many of the paper pads. Say it with flowers, sunflowers, all work beautifully with the pumpkin. Absolutely
One
gorgeous.
of my favourites is the Pacific. It's like a teal colour.
Oh, I haven't got that one.
That's a really nice one. Yeah, I like that teal blue shade, as you may have gathered with the inks, but that comes a close second to the pinks. But yeah, it's called Pacific.
Yeah.
And really, really nice shade of sort of turquoisey blue. But I can say there's such a, you know, a whole rainbow of colours in it. I know when we used to work in the store, I used to like them all in rainbow order, and they used to go mad because my OCD said that it had to start yellow into orange into red into the. They're like, Jan, what are you doing? I said, it just looks pretty.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'm happy. You know, moving them all around on the pegs.
Craft products have a purpose, they have a function, but they can also look very, very pretty
They
too.
sure do.
Absolutely. Now, Lillian's got a question. I know I'd answer, but I'll let you answer it first. Question for the experts. I made a roll-up treat box using craft card. Bet that would look lovely. I used Velcro dots as closures, but when I tried to open them, they would just tear off the card. I think it was the fibrousness of the card. The dots couldn't stick properly. Any suggestions would be welcome.
Little bit, if you have our tacky glue, let me just find my bottle in my depths of my bag there. If you have our tacky glue, which is a PVA glue, water-based PVA glue, little bit of that onto the back of your glue, your little Velcro glue dot, and this will soak into the fibres of the card and give you a better adhesion with them. Because obviously when you're pulling them apart, there's a certain amount of tension on both the Velcro and the cardstock, but this will fasten metal onto card, it will fasten wood onto card. As I say, just a little dot of it behind allows it to sort of adhere the Velcro dot, but that wet glue will soak into the card and give you a really good contact.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Exactly, the tacky glue. As Jan said, tacky glue will stick metal, it will stick glass, it will stick gems to your cardstock, so it'll be perfect. Put it on and then leave it. The most important thing is that you leave it to really, really cure, because I think that is absolutely key. Oh, so Eve B says, that is so yummy, lovely, pretty, luscious. I think she was the fan of cardstock. She was, was it the two colours, the chocolate and the mocha? I'm not sure. Coletta Cooper says, I love Centura Pearl colours. I have the sexy black, very cool.
I love the sexy black.
Is that what it's called, sexy
No,
black?
it's just called black. It's me that calls it. I just think it is very sexy.
Yeah,
it is. And it comes out on special occasions, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got it, you know.
Yeah, there's a time to use matte black card and there's a time for sexy black Centura Pearl.
Okay. So you know how far you are up the pecking order, if you've got matte black or whether you've got Centura black.
That's the one, yeah.
Okay. So Jan, if I said to you, she didn't know I'm going to ask this, if I said to you, Desert Island, you could only take one cardstock.
Oh gosh, that's a hard one, isn't it? I think, as much as I love my craft card, I think it would have to be the multi-purpose, purely because you can do more than one thing with it, yeah.
I think that would be what I would say. Yeah. This is your multi-purpose. So this is your 300 GSM, and I know it's not available today, but it will be very soon.
It's on its way.
You can get it in the A4 and the A3. And as Jan showed you, if you look back at our 11 a.m. show this morning, having it in the A3 means that if you're maybe doing a stepper card, you can cut a long piece. If you're doing a box, you can do the lid and the base in one without having to join. Just gives you so much more. If you're doing constructions and things like that, having in the A3 is amazing. But again, the Centura Pearl comes in A3, doesn't it? The
It does.
Snow White.
It
and,
does, yes.
so,
just
you know,
popping back to that, Corrine. Sorry to interrupt you. The A3 multi-purpose. We did have a question on that, which I'm not sure whether we answered properly this morning.
That was this morning, and it was, what if you've got the US one, the US version of...
Or it was if you hadn't got the A3, I think, can you still make the box that I made?
That
Yes.
was
So
right,
I made
yes.
the little pizza box this morning out of a piece of the A3, and it means you can make it. This is all out of one piece of cardstock. I think it measured about 14.5 inches in total by about 11 and something across, and it's literally all made out of the one piece, which makes it a little bit more sort of strong because you're not sticking anything together. In the past, without the A3, we've had to make what we call deconstructed boxes, so somewhere it has to be joined together. And the answer, and forgive me because I can't remember the lady's name, but she asked it, I'm sure she asked if you could make it if you didn't have the A3. And what you would do is actually cut the two pieces of the box separately, and whereas you've got this 1 1/4 inch in my case here, I would add this to this side of the box, and I would also add it to this side of the box, so you'd have 2 layers of this which would then overlap and stick together on the back to form the hinge if you wanted to make the box that opened like those pizza boxes. I hope that makes sense. So it's a case of, whereas I've got my 1 1/4 inch depth on this side and I've got it on this side, the base has actually got the 1 1/4 inch depth here, but this is the same piece that goes for the top. So if you were making them separate, you'd need the base to have a 1 1/4 inch piece, and then just overlap them at the back so that this piece in the back here was actually double strength and overlapped. So yeah, you can make it out of the smaller pieces. It just depends what size. And as I say, by having that A3, it just opens up. The other thing with the A3 as well is that you can make a true 6x6 card, thank goodness. Because the A4, you can only get up to like 5 7/8 square. And that really bugs me. It really bugs me that, why didn't they make it 12 inches wide?
Yeah.
Instead of that 11 3/4 and a bit, you know, it's like, make it 12 inches, yeah. So the A3 allows you to make that 6-inch square without any trouble.
That's why I love 12 by 12 cardstock, because you can just go straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Two 6x6 card bases.
I say, whoever invented the A4 size here in the UK.
I mean, that was way before crafting, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but yes,
I'm not sure what was going on there.
And that's why we do the 2 scoreboards as well, the Ultimate Pros. One for the US letter size and one for the UK A4 cards. So depending on what cardstock you use, it dictates which one you would be using. Right, well, I think that's more or less all of our questions gone. Lillian says thank you. That was a question about the dots, the
Velcro dots,
Velcro
yeah,
dots.
absolutely,
So,
yeah.